Hey everyone, Shashank this side. I hope everybody is doing well and safe at home. As you can see on my screen, topic for today or the agenda for today is Amazon Cognito. Another web service module from Amazon Web Services where you can use this module to do a user sign up, sign in and manage your user access control for your application, whether it is web application or a mobile based application. And the configuration and the management is quite simple when you use Amazon Cognito. So first we will try to understand the concept, the logic behind this particular module, and after that I'll try to show you how you can integrate application load balancer to route the request to Cognito and try to authenticate. So let's deep dive into the theoretical concept. So as I said, Amazon Cognito allow users to do a sign up, sign in functionality, allow you to access control of your web and mobile application. It scales into millions of users, supports the sign in with different social identity providers such as Apple, Facebook, Google. It's integrated with all those third party provider. Also, you can use enterprise identity provider via SAML 2.0 and OpenID Connect. Amazon Cognito, it's an AWS product. It's a managed services where it allow you to control your user authentication, access management of your application on the internet connected devices as well. The service saves and synchronizes end user data, which enable you to focus on your code itself, developing a code instead of building and managing the backend infrastructure. So since this is a managed service, we really don't have to worry about how to scale up this particular environment or how to scale down the environment. This is something Amazon is handling for us. We just have to worry about writing a code, coding down our application and placing that application on top of this infrastructure. So what does all these pointer means? So in a general term, if I talk about Amazon Cognito, understand like a authentication mechanism, a user management access control, what we do with the general active directory cases where we try to create some users and those users are getting authenticated via their user ID and the system's identifier, whatever we are writing in the backend for the active directory controllers. So based on that, it's kind of the same mechanism, but having some different functionality inbuilt into it. Now let's try to understand with an example. So let's say I have to build an application which is available to the public world, but there are like certain internal pages where only the logged in users can see those pages, like internal to those particular user itself as client, right? For example, you do google.com, you are seeing the interface of the search engine, but there are like few applications where the actual clients can log into google.com and see those application which is used by the clients itself. So that's where Amazon Cognito comes into picture, where it will allow logged in user to see that particular page instead of available to all the public world, right? So let's say we have some secured backend services like DB, REST APIs, and user needs to access those services. So you need to authorize those user, and those user will get authorized and access those services once we provide that particular mechanism in the backend written to that application or integrated with that application. So that's what Amazon Cognito in general all about, where you get a sense of mechanism of doing a user sign up, doing a sign in, and the administrator can also do a user access management control. You can define the policy, when to expire a password, when to renew the stuff on the policy side. So those we can see once we go to the practical side. But in the backend, how we are configuring, what is the heart of configuration of Amazon Cognito? So we create user pool and identity pool. So user pool is basically where the user directories provides the sign up and sign in functionality, the options basically. On the other hand, when it comes to the identity pool, these are the managed identity pool where AWS credential to grant user access to other AWS services. For example, I have authenticated my user against an application. Internally, that application is calling S3 bucket or DynamoDB or RDS. So those level of access has to be granted by your AWS identity pool. That's where the identity pool comes into picture. Now this is a generic diagram. I have not created it. I have taken it from the AWS documentation. what is happening over here, we have an application. Now when app users sign in through the user pool, because application user has to sign in through the user pool, and internally that application is contacting S3 or DynamoDB or any other AWS services. So first step is user pool is getting authenticated. That's what the user pool is doing over here. It receives the user pool of token after successful authentication. Once the authentication is done, then application exchange that user pool token for AWS credential through identity pool. That's where the identity pool comes into picture, where AWS grant access to services like S3 or DynamoDB or RDS or whatever services or modules we are using in the backend, right? And finally, our application user can then use those AWS credential to access other AWS services. So in a layman term, if I talk about, so you are entering into a house, so you have to open up a lock. That's where you are authenticating yourself. Once you enter into the premises, each room is connected to one another, so you have to get access to those rooms. That's where the identity pool comes into picture, because within the world of cloud platform, regardless of Azure, AWS, Google or Oracle, one service has to interact with another service, then you have to provide the access management. That's where the IAM permission comes into picture. The same functionality is over here, where identity pool comes here, and with the help of AWS credential in the backend, it allow you to access your S3 bucket or RDS or any other services or modules, whatever we have integrated with our application. So I hope this clears in terms of the user pool and identity pool. Okay, again, the same scenario like a user pool, dedicated pointers regarding the user pool. So user pool is a user directory of Amazon Cognito, where you can get the sign in functionality of your web application through Cognito or federated third party IDP provider. Now, what all user pool provides: a sign in, sign up functionality, a built in customizable web UI. We can get that functionality as well. I will show you into the practical demo. We can also integrate with the third party social sign up app like Facebook, Google, or Amazon, or any third party SAML provider or IDP. Plus, we can do a user directory management, as what I said, user management, what we do in the Active Directory. Then we can customize the workflow and user migration through Lambda trigger as well. So a lot of different functionality. You can have a security feature like an MFA implemented on top of that. So all those functionality we have in Cognito. Identity pool, again with identity pool, user can obtain their temporary AWS credential to access other AWS services. It can be S3, it can be DynamoDB, it can be RDS, depend what application is integrated with to call the API endpoints in the backend. Now what identity pools are providing to us? It's a Cognito user pool, social sign up, the same functionality, OpenID connectors, the OIDC providers, SAML identity provider, and the developer authenticated identities. So again, intention over here is to understand the logic behind user pool and identity pool, where how application can interact internally to AWS services, because we try to store a lot of different data in S3 bucket or DynamoDB, but application has to interact with all those services. That's where identity pool comes into picture. But the entry point has to be a user pool, where you have to authenticate yourself on the backend with your user ID and password. So I hope this clears a lot in terms of the concept, why Cognito is created as a module, or how we can use. Obviously I will show you the practical demo, how you can configure. I will show you a production use case where you can have your application load balancer in front of it, and application load balancer will redirect a traffic with the help of Cognito to the secured page, which is not available to all the public members. As I said in start, like Google, when you hit google.com, it's a search engine, everybody can access it. But if you don't have a Gmail ID, you can't access Gmail. If you don't have YouTube ID, you can't access the internal features of YouTube, right? YouTube is a generic platform, but there are like few features that you can get access to with certain set of functionality. So that's where a generic example I'm talking about. It's not like this has to be done in that way, depend upon the requirement what we are playing around. So let's jump to our AWS management console and try to configure our Cognito. So that's my AWS management console. Now, in order to show you the practical demo, we have to take some sort of scenario. So for that, what I have done, I have just created a simple scenario where we have a set of user that hitting an application, and that application has a public page and a secure page passing via AWS application load balancer. In the backend, we have EC2 instances hosting our application pages itself. Now, how Cognito will help over here? Let's say we are having some set of user hitting application abc.com. It will go to load balancer into the backend target, and we have two pages. One is public page, which is available for everybody. One is the secure page where you have to authenticate yourself. Until unless if you don't authenticate yourself, then it will be a problem for you to see that particular page in the backend target group. So that's how the simple basic scenario that I have created. And understand this is a production use case. Most of organization uses this use case only in order to implement Cognito. We have certain number of scenarios in Cognito as well, but today we'll be going to take a look at UserPool, where you can authenticate yourself as a user directory, where you get a sign up sign in functionality and see that particular secure pages. In order to create a video on identity pool, just place out a comment if you are looking for that particular scenario as well. We'll try to cover that, but my intention over here to create this video, to create this tutorial on Cognito, just to clear your concept how you can implement the use case of Cognito. Okay, so before deep diving into the Cognito configuration, I already have an instance created. It's an Amazon Linux hosted with Apache, a default page and a test page created. And I have already created an application load balancer with my two listeners, HTTP and HTTPS. Mostly we'll be going to work with HTTPS over here because that's where the configuration is required. Now, if I try to hit my DNS of application load balancer, so let me show you this. HTTPS. Okay, so this is the default page. Welcome to my channel. Now, if I try to show you the secure page, which is test.html, it will show you another message that welcome to the secure page. Okay, now since this is a secure page, we'll be going to apply Cognito, the user mechanism of authenticating via user Cognito pool. It will show you a prompt you for authenticate your user ID against your Cognito configuration. How can we do that? Let's dive into the Cognito world. So search for Cognito. Okay, let's open up a new tab. As you can see, I don't have any Cognito pool created over here. I'm operating from Virginia. Now click on manage user pool. As I said, for the identity pool, if you want, I can create a video. The concept is quite similar. We have to just use AWS credential, a temporary credential, to access the different resources of AWS. But place out a comment in comment section and we'll try to cover that scenario as well. So click on manage user pool. Let's see the configuration one by one. Here you have to create a user pool, which is required. So I'll give this name as Cognito. Now review default or step through the settings. It's always a good practice to do a customized setting instead of going directly with reviewing the default setting provided by Amazon. Okay, now here are different options that we have to configure. Username. Obviously, we want to authenticate ourselves with the help of username. Plus, I can also do it via phone number or email address. I prefer to do with the email address as well, including with that. Email address or phone number. So user can use email address or phone number as the username to sign up and sign in. So you can enable this as well. This is recommended as part of the best practices. Enable case insensitivity. So it's like somebody try to do caps S Abhishek or somebody tries to do a lowercase S Abhishek. So better to enable this option, case insensitivity, so you don't have to worry about typing uppercase or a lowercase scenarios. Here are few standard attributes that we have to use. So all these standard attributes can be used for your user profiles. It's preferred to use email or phone number. So generally I try to have only two, email and phone number, for my record purpose. You can also add the custom attributes. As an example, you can have string or number. So you can give age, which is number, starting from 0, which is the minimum value, to 1000 should be good. You can, instead of 0, you can have 1. Okay, you can add another attribute based upon your application requirement. So click next. This is the page where you set your user authentication security policy. Password minimum length, require number, special character, uppercase, lowercase. For this particular video, I'm just going with the minimum length of 8 and removing all those checks, or let's say all, we enable all the check, that should be fine. Now allow users to sign themselves up. Either that option is available because I want my users to sign up their own credentials, right? Instead of only administrator doing the user management, like create user and give the username and password to them and they reset their password. So it's better my, again, depend upon the application requirement and how you want to manage the user, because you cannot ask client every time, hey, I'll be going to create a user for you and we'll be going to manage. So most of the time client will deny this particular scenario and they want to use their own mechanism of creating users of their organization. Days to expire, that's where like 7 days, 30 days or 45 days. As part of the active directory scenario, we generally go for 45 to 90 days, depend upon how organization works on resetting the password. Okay, click next. Now here we can also enable the multi-factor authentication. So one of the important point to note over here is, let's say if you click required, you cannot switch off the MFA authentication once everything is configured. You can change it to optional, but you cannot make it off. That's something very important to understand. Now, which second factor you want to enable? You want to do it from SMS, then you have to use SMS service to send out SMS text, or you want a time-based one-time password. So depend again upon the requirement of your organization and application, how you want to do that. How user will be able to recover their account, either via email, phone, email only or phone only. I'm going with email because I don't want to share my number on this particular video. So I just want everybody to reach out through email. So that's why I'm using email. Most of the time, that's my configuration. But obviously, as part of the production standard, email and phone number both are always advisable to do that. Okay, which attributes you want to verify? Email, phone number, email or phone, or no verification? Obviously, I'm going with the email for this particular video. Acknowledge. So just read out all the values, all the configuration properly, because once configuration is done, there are like few values that you cannot change, like MFA in case. As I said, once you have done required, you cannot switch off the MFA authentication. Multi-factor authentication is always required as part of the security best practices. You must provide a role to allow Cognito to send out a SMS message. So I'm going to create a role Cognito because within AWS, as you know, one service has to interact with another service. The IAM role and permission has to be provided. Either you create your own set of policies in IAM and use that role over here, or generally I allow Amazon to create all those roles on behalf of me so that I don't miss any set of policies. Okay, click next. Now here, do you want to customize your email address and everything? So I'm going to skip this, only just reply to, which basically I'm going to use one of my email address. Okay. Now, do you want to send an email through simple email service, or you want to use Cognito default? So I'm going with the default value. Now, these are the values that you can change. Do you want to customize your email verification messages? You can use code, or you want to send out a link, because in most of the cases, so when you try to apply for a job for any organization, generally you get when you create your user ID and your basically a profile, you get an email verification link, and when you click that, your email ID gets verified, your account gets verified. So based on that, you can use either code or link. Most of the time you will see a link is provided to authenticate yourself, to confirm your account. I'm going with the code, so I'm not going to touch any kind of values over here. I'm going with the default values, but just to let you know, you can customize all these values based upon your requirement. Okay, click next. Now, do you want to add tags? Again, tagging is a mechanism where it will help you to audit your costing for your organization. So based on that, you can create your own tag. Click next. So this particular page gives you an option whether you want to remember your user devices or not. In again, it depends upon the requirement of your application. You want to see from which device user is logged in with. Then if you want always to remember, then go for always. If you want to give an option whether user opt-in is there, then you can select the second option. For this video, I don't want to remember the user device, so I'm clicking no. Click next. Now, which app client will have access to their user pool? So app client is very important entity over here, because this entity is going to be calling all your registered, the sign up, forgetting password APIs. So we definitely need this functionality to integrate with application load balancer. So I'm going to click on add app client, give this name as Cognito Demo. Okay, refresh the token expiration after 30 days. Again, this number has to be 30 minutes, sorry, this number has to be defined as per your application requirement and as per your organization. Generate a secret, client secret. You can enable Lambda trigger based upon the custom authentication. So all these flows, once done, you can modify it as well, but based upon your requirement, you have to select all the flow configuration. Okay, enable token revocation, or this is the recommended one, the security configuration, prevent user with the existence error. Okay, now click on create app client. So app client is created. Click next. Here you want to customize your trigger, so you can do a pre-sign up customization with the help of Lambda function, pre-authentication, post-authentication, custom messages. So mostly you have to write a Lambda function in most of the cases, where you can do your customization as per your application requirements. I don't have any such application requirement as of now. Obviously, to do all these functionality, I might need help of my developer to write up a Lambda function based upon the application, what it behaves, how it behaves basically. So I'm going with the default values as of now, but yes, the customization is always possible with these kind of configuration. Click next. Okay, so as you can see, you have chosen Cognito to send out an email on behalf of you. Best practices suggest that customer sends email through simple email service for the production user pool due to the daily email limit. So that is something very a considerable point. So if you are using SES, then yes, that's a best practices with the Cognito. Okay, I'm going with MFA on and all the stuff. Click on create user pool. Perfect. So as of now, my user pool is created, but there are like few more functionalities how this user pool will get authenticated with my or integrated with my application load balancer. We have to do few more settings over here. For that, let's go to app client. I just want to see. So this is the app client ID. You can check the details as well, all the, and if you want to change any kind of information over here based upon your application, you can do that. Okay, so let's go to our app client setting. Now, since we are dealing with the world of Cognito configuration over here, and we have created our own Cognito user pool, in this video, I'm going to use my Cognito user as identity provider. But let's say if you want to integrate with a third party provider, so you have to go to Federation, identity provider, and here you can see we have Facebook, Google, Amazon, SAML, OpenID Connect. So based upon your application, if you want to interact with the third party federated identity provider, then yes, that option is also available with Cognito. So let's go back to our app client setting, where we have to use obviously the Cognito user pool, the callback URL. that's where the user has to authenticate. I'm going to use my load balancer DNS. It has to be HTTPS, then OAuth for the authentication, and IDP response. Sign out URL. I don't have any that functionality present in my application. It's just a plain page, so that's why I'm not going to give the sign out functionality over here. Then OAuth 2, which is then you have to select your OAuth flows, how you want to authenticate, then authorization code grant, and I'm going to select OpenID, click on save changes. Okay, changes has been saved. The last part that we have to deal with the Cognito is the domain name that we have to create. So this is kind of a prefix domain name that can, again, as you can see, it's a lowercase letters, numbers, and everything that you can use. So domain prefix is used to sign up and sign in functionality hosted by Amazon Cognito. So that's a basic configuration that we have to configure. Now, since this is a domain, then we have to check the availability. So let's see, Cognito Demo. Let's check the availability. The domain is not available. Okay, Cognito 2 Demo, it should be available. No. Okay, Cognito Abi, domain is not available. I guess most of the guys have used all these domains. 1.2 test 1. Let's see. That's also not available. Let's go tech in cloudy. Wait, that should be available. Yeah, domain is available. So click on save changes. Perfect. So at this point of time, the configuration on the Cognito side is almost done. Now, how you can integrate application load balancer with Cognito? For that, we have to jump into our load balancer configuration. So click on listener, go to your HTTPS listener, and here let's create a rule, because I showed you by default when you hit load balancer URL, you will get routed to a default page, welcome to my channel, and /test.html will show you welcome to the secure page. So I'm going to have the authentication created for the secure page only. So let's create a path base value with load balancer with path as test.html, route that request or authenticate that request to Amazon Cognito. Let's use the pool that we have created and the app client for the token identity provider. And we have session cookie name that you can see, timeout, scope, then mapping, extra response, and everything that you can create. You can change the session timeout value as well. Okay, so that's for the authentication purpose. Where that has to route, it has to go to my test target group that consists of my application. Okay, click save. Perfect. So the integration configuration is done as well. Let's take our DNS itself. Now I'm going to show you something. Let's hit the default page. Welcome to my channel. Now if I try to have test.html, as you can see, I'm getting a sign in and a sign up page. This is first time I'm configuring this, so I have to sign up my user ID. So click on sign up. Here let's use our name, any random number with country code. It's a fake number, I would say. Okay, email ID 1107gmail.com, password. Now here you can see lowercase and all the combination that what we have selected. So I'm going to use uppercase, lowercase, and everything, whatever they are asking for. Okay, click on sign up. Not now. Now as you can see, the verification code has been sent to my email ID. Okay, so let me check my email on phone. Okay, I have received a code on my email ID which I have given, so which is 776420. Confirm account. Let's see. Welcome to my secure page. which means my secure authentication page is showing after getting authenticated with my user pool, the sign up and the sign in functionality in the backend. So that's how the Cognito configuration work. Now, in terms of how you can do a user management, so go to Cognito, go to users and groups, and here it will show you who has been authenticated or confirmed their account. S Abhishek, click on this, and you will see it is enabled with MFA, then email verified true, phone number verified false because I have given a fake number over here. That's my email ID. We can reset the password, we can disable MFA, we can disable user, we can delete user. All those functionalities can be handled by the administrator of this account or the application itself. If you want to change any sort of configuration, yes, you can do that. If you want to add a group over here, you can create a group and assign that user to a group. So the group logic comes into picture where you have, let's say, Intel as a company. Intel is your client. Then a group of users from Intel will access your application. A group of Adobe users will access your application. So in that case, you can create a group, dedicated group for each client, and within those group, you can give or assign users to that particular company. So based on that, you can segregate the permission level too. Yeah, so that's the basic configuration and one of the production use case that we generally deal with Cognito. So I hope this clears a lot in terms of how you can play around with the Cognito configuration in terms of the user pool creation and the authentication mechanism itself. How this configuration we have achieved, like if somebody is hitting your application via ALB to your EC2 instance, and if you just want to show some of the endpoints which are internal to your application, like connecting to the database or S3 bucket or some sort of content, then yes, you can have a Cognito in between and it will route your request after authentication if the users are in picture over there. And if you want to show the public pages apart from the Cognito in configuration, then yes, you can do that as well. So totally depend upon the requirement of your application. So that's it guys for this particular video. I hope this clears a lot in terms of the concept and the configuration. So just play it around with your environment, show it to the management that yes, we can secure our environment by using Cognito. Since this is a managed services, scale up, it can scale up to millions of users. So there, I haven't seen any performance issue, because initially there was a performance issue when Cognito was launched, but nowadays it's quite good service which scales up to millions and there is no issue. I haven't seen any issues in scaling up the Cognito module itself. Yeah, so play it around and place out a comment in comment section if you're facing any issue. Have a nice day. Bye bye.